Happy Friday. Welcome back to day 3 of the Leading Transformational Change Forum. Wow, this has been a great week and it's not over. Welcome to our session, Winning with Scalable People Strategies. Today, our esteemed presenters and my C4C colleagues will share a new paradigm for getting more from your investment in people. I'm really excited for you to hear more because they have figured out how to take something really hard to do and make it simple and actionable. And by all means, this is not because their approach is simplistic. It's because they have absorbed the complexity for you. I'm Erica Kaufman. I do leadership development and change work, and I am thrilled to introduce our co-presenters. Byron Lowe is an executive coach and helps leaders find their big why. He is passionate about guiding people to find meaning and purpose. And this is huge because when they do, they have more time, more focus, courage, and energy. You hear that? He has created time. Tom Rosenak works with executives to increase their investment in people. He is also an executive coach and uses data-based approaches. He also has expertise in effective leadership communication strategies. Both of these talented guys are entrepreneurs with their own companies and co-founders of Optimax Talent. Optimax Talent is Byron's brainchild, and when he wanted a collaborator, he reached into his C4C network to partner with Tom. The two united to focus on talent optimization work. And as many of us in the Consortium for Change know, they have on the ready a powerful network of colleagues to quickly scale to address client needs. So with that, I will hand things over to Byron and Tom.
Erica, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm energized just to hear about this whole forum and to participate in it, to see how we can work together to create better outcomes with and through people. And I'm going to tell a little bit of the story before I hand it over to Byron, is that Byron and I met through C4C and introduced by our colleague, Karen Jaw Matson, who some of you know, and we instantly aligned on our values. And it wasn't hard to align on some basic goals, but the challenge is, how do we work better together? And so we used what we'll be talking about today to notice that we had some natural overlap and we also had some opposites. And there is a time for Byron's drive to get things done and my drive to talk about it more and to learn when to pull which quality forward. So I'm Tom Rosenak, and my colleague who will be co-presenting is Byron. Go ahead and say hello, Byron.
Hi, everyone.
And advance.
Today, we're going to show you, our desire is to show you where you can start with what you have. There isn't necessarily anything special you need to have, but what we want to be able to talk about is how you can increase your return on your people investment. And Tom, why don't you share about how we can scale that?
Yeah, so we're going to, as Erica mentioned, we're going to keep it as simple as possible because we only have 30 minutes, which does not mean simplistic. But when we think of scale, we instantly think about expansion. And that's part of scaling, but starting where you are with what you have often means doing more with less. And that's a form of scaling as well. And strategy, we're going to define it very simply. What are you counting on to win? Because whatever win you define is going to be accomplished with and through cooperation of other people. And often our people strategy is reactive rather than aligned. And we'll give you some examples of that as we go. But the main point here is we can throw people at problems, and that's very expensive. And the problems will keep recurring as an upset.
Now, this misalignment that we have, it really comes from the desire. A lot of it comes from a desire for people to help. I'll use an example. These four managers. Let's just pretend that these 4 managers are in your company, and let's just pretend that all 4 of these managers have a different way of solving people problems. They all use a different tool, And again, what ends up happening is you have the proverbial boat on the right, where you have some people that are bailing the boat, and then as water comes in, and the reality is that there isn't this alignment, and that creates a problem, because everyone that it's a part of this forum these last 3 days, everyone would agree that people matter. Everyone believes this, but the point of what Tom and I want to share today is about getting that alignment, getting these 4 people managers. And let's say you had 4, where you had 40 or 400. Let's get them aligned so that they're using the same tool in the same way in order to get the results you want. Now, Jack Welch, everyone knows Jack Welch, and we're gonna share a little clip that he shares. I'm gonna play it twice. So you can,
I never think of strategy as one thing. I think strategy, execution, and people all go together. And if you don't get the people right, the strategy doesn't matter. And if you don't get the people right, you won't get the execution. So from my standpoint, strategy is sort of a purist thing. It's more academic. Execution and getting it done is what it's all about. I never think of strategy as one thing. I think strategy, execution, and people all go together. And if you don't get the people right, the strategy doesn't matter. And if you don't get the people right, you won't get the execution. So from my standpoint, strategy is sort of a purist thing. It's more academic. Execution and getting it done is what it's all about.
Tom?
Well, you'll notice the 3 pieces of the puzzle. And first of all, this is pretty simple to put together because the pieces aren't moving. My grandson could put this together very easily.
All right, so here's the idea. With
sorry about that, Tom.
That's quite all right. So we look at this puzzle and we see it's pretty easy to put together because the pieces aren't moving, and my 4-year-old grandson could put it together quite easily. But we know that the pieces are always moving and the people are all different. So what we need is a language to check where these dynamic pieces are relative to one another. So for example, the left puzzle piece is your business strategy. Most leaders can clearly articulate their business strategy. The far right are the goals we're trying to produce. They have their SMART goals. They know the results they want. The middle is where it's really messy, and that's where the people are. So I'll give you a simple example of a non-aligned strategy. I worked with a company once that wanted to invest in people's development. So they had a stipend. They had $1,000 a year educational stipend. What they found is at the end of the year, people were frenetically running around because they didn't renew to the next year and spending their stipend. They may or may not be the best choice. Maybe they got a subscription to a magazine, which isn't necessarily bad. If you will listen to Google, on the other hand, Google places a strong focus on professional development. It encourages employees to spend 20% of their time on personal projects that align with company goals, fostering innovation and creativity. And there's more to that strategy, but that's enough for now. The difference is we don't picture a CEO sitting there and monitoring where they are on the 20%. But it's measurable. And we believe that we want leaders at every level. And so somebody needs to have a conversation with somebody about how they envision this aligning with company goals. So it's not perfect, but you're always attempting to align personal growth, which is a good thing in and of itself, or it could be wellness, but how does that impact our business strategy? Well, we identified a disconnect. We have a business strategy, we have goals, And people often don't even put the word people and strategy together. Remember those leaders that Byron showed a minute ago? They all clearly have a people strategy. We work only with successful companies, so everybody has a people strategy. But when you ask them, they can't articulate it, which means they can't share it. So we need to establish a common language where people can put their individual styles into it, but make sure they can talk about it in a way it's duplicatable across the organization. I remember one time I was sitting in a conference room, and Rob was the gentleman's name, and he said, Tom, I would like to spend more time solving business problems and less time solving people problems. And I said to him, most people problems, most business problems are people problems in disguise. And until we understand the root cause of the people problems, they keep cropping up like whack-a-mole. We put out a fire and up they go over and over and over again. So we need a strategy to understand the people's differences and manage those differences in a way that moves in the same direction. Take it away, Byron.
And really, that goes back to what I was sharing earlier, this idea of alignment. Now, those 4 people managers, it's not that they're working against each other, but because they're not aligned, that ends up being the case. And what we're suggesting as far as something to consider today, and again, beginning right where you are, is to literally have a framework right where you are. And it doesn't matter if it's if you're looking at recruiting or if you're looking at wanting to do, kind of assess the entire organization, no matter where you are as a company. As far as even the life cycle of the company, it's important that you have a process that's repeatable, that you can duplicate the process again and again and again. It's a framework. So the best teams that we have in our companies, they're almost like magic, because they get along, the work gets done, they complement one another, and the whole becomes in some ways greater than the parts. And performance with great teams, it absolutely soars. But this isn't something that Tom and I've created. This is actually from a company called the Predictive Index, and it's an assessment. There's actually now a way where we can measure that. There's a scientific way to measure high-performing teams. And there's a software that can help us do really the heavy lifting. So the solution that we believe is with the people strategy, because everyone has some form of people strategy, is to consider using the Predictive Index as a tool. This framework has within it 4 sets of tools: hire, inspire, design, and diagnose. Now, everyone knows that there are a few tools out there in the marketplace that exist that we can analyze the talent on our teams. There are some, but there are few tools out there that can help us understand how to improve each individual team member's performance in that team. And there are hardly any tools at all that looks at the whole person as it relates to the team. And what we're suggesting today is just considering using a tool like that, where you can see not only the individuals, but also the team as a whole. Now, each one of those components, this is actually a software that's a part of the Predictive Index. The PI hire reduces the time that you would need to take, and also the effort it would take in order for you to find the right person for all the roles that you have open right now in your company. It gives you actionable, objective data across the organization in order for you to put the right people in the right seat. It reduces time. Obviously, that reduces cost. And when you add the right person to the right team at the right time, again, we can talk about how important that is. PI Inspire really gives you a way of developing outstanding leaders. It gives them an assist. It gives them a way to have a side-by-side conversation with the people on their team and also to understand themselves. But it really gives a personalized way of understanding leadership and having a leadership development software that's very, very powerful. That really, it's an accelerant for conversations and for leadership development. And then PI Design is really where you can really turn your teams into dream teams. And there are three primary components to this. I mean, helping the leader understand themselves, because everyone has their own profile, also understanding their team, and then understanding the strategy of the team. And then lastly is PI diagnose, which is probably one of the most powerful attributes within the talent optimization, because it gives you the ability to use science-based and science-backed pulse surveys on an ongoing basis. You can actually have a metric, something you can measure. And this absolutely does, it identifies disengagement, and it literally helps you find a way to really solve and satisfy and really get managers to be a better manager, better leader, so engagement goes up.
And I want to give two specific examples so that it doesn't seem abstract and conceptual. So on the higher module, you may have noticed or may not have noticed that that the word quickly is in there. There was a big box store that was releasing a new, and I don't want to mention the names, but they had a new product that was significantly lower than anything else on the market. So their first business strategy was based on price. We cost less than the competition. And if you know anything about these kind of electronic stores, they tend to hire churn it and burn it type of salespeople because it's highly transactional. There's not much education involved at all. And you just say price, 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 price. And they had a wonderful release of the product. It was jumping off the shelf because it cost significantly less than the competition. But what they noticed is the return rate was extremely high and they didn't have any profitability. And so they needed to hire a different type of salesperson that would help people to understand, because these people thought it would do everything that the other product did. And they would get home and they'd be frustrated because they couldn't do this, they couldn't do the other thing. And they quickly created a profile of the kind of people that would engage the customer and ask the right questions to make sure only people that understood what it would do who could get the value of the lower price. So that was using the hire to do it very quickly. And I had a client who she was frustrated because the team was growing and she was noticing silo happening and nobody was stepping up to do some of the things. So she had to play continuous traffic cop, if you bear with that phrase. And so we did a little team workshop. And in this team workshop, we noticed that they had differing work styles. So rather than taking a hierarchical approach and saying, well, you have seniority, you should take this forward moving, the team very quickly was able organically to say, well, maybe she should step up to the plate here. And so the 4 work styles help them frame the conversations that should have happened anyway, but never would have. Now, what Byron showed you before was the overall map of talent optimization, and that never changes. We're aligning business strategy to people strategy to drive results. But here is where meet you where you are. We're not against putting out fires. If your biggest fire is a specific dysfunctional team, then that's where we start. So in this, we have to realize the map is not the territory. Every company is impacted by engagement, they work in teams, they want to inspire their workers, and they want to hire the right fit. But what this allows us to do is discovery. We always default. True north is discovery. If you went to a mall and there were all these wonderful stores, but you didn't have the famous "you are here," you wouldn't know where to go on this roadmap. So this roadmap is always tailored to your need, short-term, long-term, enterprise level if you're dealing with culture, or just a specific dysfunction in a part of it. And the idea is over time, in a duplicatable way, to start getting leaders at every level to think this way. And the last point I want to make, so true north is discovery, and that's where we begin. And then the last point that I want to make, it was made before, but I want to underline it, is that this allows us to have a way to deal effectively with conflict. And I like to define conflict as discomforting differences. We often think about conflict in terms of when it's already escalated and we don't like it. But the first conflict is just there are differences. And after all, aren't we going for diversity? So Byron and I discovered differences quite quickly, and they were discomforting. But we had our common values and we had our common framework to help us to work through, work with, and work better together.
You know, one last thing, remember those 4 people managers that I kind of highlighted earlier. Having a framework like this and tools that are accessible and that are applicable to them as people leaders, this allows them to have that opportunity for alignment, even in their own desires for developing the people that are on their teams. I mean, obviously they develop the people on their team. They don't develop the people on the other teams, but when you have a common tool, all of a sudden now you have a common language, and that is going to enable you to get to your destination quicker and in many ways more efficiently, and also in some ways more enjoyably. So what we'd like you to consider is just having a strategy call with us, with either myself or Tom, and at no cost or obligation. Then the whole purpose of this is for you to get, I mean, you may have already taken the predictive index because it is a very, very popular tool out there in the marketplace. And if you have, that's great. We can actually even dig that up, even if you've taken it 20 years ago, that's okay. The point is that we want to discuss, just like Tom shared a second ago, we want to discover kind of where you are and just have a conversation. But if you haven't taken the PI, you're going to love it. It doesn't take very long to take. It takes like 6 minutes to take. And I say this every single time I share about it, because to me, it's a big deal, because I want to be inclusive. It's offered in 70 languages. So, and what we promise is we want to be able to kind of have an opportunity to kind of sit with you for 30 minutes or an hour. I think this is an hour, and we'll go over your PI results, and we'll also have a chance to actually look at a sample team, so you can see some of the team data. Tom, do you have anything you would like to add?
Well, I just want to say that we are sending everybody a little longer report because we only had 30 minutes and couldn't go into a lot of details. So you'll receive that even if you don't reach out for a call, and to give you a broader understanding of how this may fit where you're going and where you are.
So just as a challenge and as something to consider, I mean, that QR code, if you take a picture of that with your phone, that'll actually take you to this website, and it's the scaleoptimaxtalent.com. It's this website here. But when you do that, what we'd like you to consider is when you give us your contact info, promise we'll keep this safe and sacred, but we do want to be able to have a chance to communicate with you, which is why we ask you to fill out that initial form. But there are really just a few steps here. The first step, we like you to take the predictive index. And even if you've taken it before, you can take it again. The results don't change a lot. I mean, sometimes they do. It just depends on kind of where you are in your life and with the things that have happened. And maybe it's kind of shifted some of the way that you process information. But generally speaking, it's a very quick assessment. It's only 2 questions. Like a lot of assessments, I mean, because of what I do as a coach, I've had a chance to go through a lot of different assessments and different trainings on different assessments, and this is by far probably my favorite one. And honestly, one of the reasons is it's my favorite. Not only the results, it's just really quick, and I'm relatively impatient as a person, so it takes 6 minutes for you to take, and I think you'll find the results very fascinating. So that is step 1, and step 2 is we like you to schedule that strategy call. And again, this website will literally, it's kind of seamless. It'll take you right through that process. And then you'll be able to find a time that works for you. And again, this is connected to both of our calendars. And then lastly, what we want to be able to do is everyone's going to get, I mean, not everyone is going to set an appointment with us. We understand that, but everyone's going to receive a kind of like a roadmap for talent optimization. It's going to be a document that we'll send you via email, and we just we appreciate you hanging with us on this webinar today. Any thoughts, Tom?
I think we're ready for questions, Erica.
All right. So you talked a little bit about how your process helps uncover the root causes of people problems. Can you maybe give some examples of some of the root causes that you've uncovered with your process and your tools?
Yeah, sure. Do you want to take that, Byron, or do you want me to take it?
You go ahead, Tom.
So when you think about root problems, the surface problem is often a behavior. And so she does something that's observable. Think of a buoy. A buoy's on the water, and we know when it's windy what's causing it to move. But imagine you didn't know and it's bobbing up and down. We would point at that and we would say, stop bobbing around there. And so, what predictive index helps us to do is to see what might be driving this. So, we have needs, we have behaviors, we have needs, and we have drives. So, the root cause is to say when you have two that are differing, then the root cause is often where we can find ways to work with the differences rather than to change them. And a tool that's powerful in PI is called a relationship guide. So if you and I filled out the PI and generated this, it says we have tendencies. And you're a human being, you're not a type. So they don't always show up. So it has potential strengths, potential blind spots. And then we have a discussion. And in that discussion, some of this data in this sheet isn't relevant. But if there's one thing that is, then I say, Erica, how can we work better together? And we can often find a way to do that. So the example with Byron, he's a get it done kind of guy. I'm a talk about it kind of guy. And so sometimes there's two things we have to do, and it's yes and, not either or. We have to flex to what the other person needs, and we have to ask for what we need. So sometimes Byron has to say, he's sociable, but he has to say, can we just get this done right now? And then I smile and say yes. And sometimes I say, no, I don't think we're ready to get it done. I don't think we're really sure where we're going. So it's not right or wrong. That's kind of a long-winded way to say, but examples pop up all the time. All you have to do is listen to the water cooler talk. If you step on my toes, I'm likely to say, you stepped on my toes. That's behavior. But you might say, that wasn't my intention, Tom. So when you're defending self, you go to intention. But when I'm telling everybody about what Erica does, my tendency is to go to the behavior. She's always doing this. And so we want to get a common language, a common understanding, and it's a human way to deal effectively with conflict. But I find having the data is a non-threatening starting point. Oh, I really do that. Oh, you really do that. And so it's a neutral document that gives us a way to go deeper.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, it looks like we have time for maybe one more question. You talked a lot about the importance of scale, and I'm wondering if you've seen differences in your approach, whether the scale is growth or if the organization is scaling down.
Byron, you want to take that, or you want me to take it?
I think that for the most part, this is a tool. It can be used in both, but I think if a company is scaling down, that's difficult. That those are hard times and situations and decisions to make. And I think that when you have the data, the team data, and how this is how to answer this question. I honestly believe it's almost inseparable when we give a human being an opportunity to be understood. So let's say you are scaling down, which is terrifically painful and hard. But when you have the data and you have this tool, because good leaders want good tools, right? Everyone has a favorite tool in their toolkit. This happens to be one of my favorite tools. But why this is an important tool for me, it's because of this. It helps me understand people. And if you are scaling down, this gives managers and leaders a way to understand their teams in a way that if they don't have a tool like this, they just simply can't, and they're not. So why wouldn't we want a tool that can help us understand not only ourselves better, but others better? And if we're scaling down and you have to make really, really hard decisions, let's see if we can do that in a way that's more human and more kind and more compassionate and more understanding. And that's what PI is. PI is a tool that helps us profoundly understand one another and understand ourselves.
Love that. Thank you. So I think that's all we have time for, but thank you so much for your presentation. I highly encourage all of you to take them up on their offer for a one-on-one talent optimization session with your data. So take the assessment. It takes just 6 minutes. And hopefully, if you didn't scan that QR code, the information will be in your inbox. And with that, thank you for joining us. And
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you, Erica.
And thank you, everybody who participated.
That's right.